Imagine waking up to a world where water is a luxury, where entire cities are parched and communities are left to scramble for every drop of water. Unfortunately, this isn't actually far off dystopia, because by 2050, over half of the global population will be living in water-stressed areas, and saltwater intrusion is projected to contaminate vital groundwater sources, affecting up to 1.5 billion people. As climate disasters intensify, the systems we rely on for water are at risk of total failure. But amidst this crisis, Gravity Water is offering a beacon of hope. Hello, I am your host, Mike Lake, and in today's episode of Preview of Tomorrow, I will be talking with Danny Wright, founder of Gravity Water, a company turning rainfall into reliable, safe drinking water for communities on the front lines of the water crisis.
Innovation, resiliency, discovery. Join Mike Lake, President and CEO of Leading Cities, as we explore the technologies shaping the possibilities of our future with a preview of tomorrow.
Hello and welcome, Danny. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to all of our listeners. Today, I am excited to introduce you to Danny Wright, the founder of Gravity Water. His organization is tackling one of the most urgent challenges of our time: reliable access to safe water, especially as climate change continues to strain our water resources. Danny, let's start by learning a little bit about you and your background and what inspired you to address the water challenges facing communities worldwide.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for the great question to get started. My name's Danny Wright. I grew up in Santa Cruz, California, grew up around a lot of water and really fell in love with it. But as I started traveling, I started learning that access to water wasn't the same for everyone around the world. And that really inspired me to learn more about the challenges communities face and how we can help navigate some of those challenges with an uncertain future. So a lot of my work focused on that. Did my background in coastal and watershed science and policy at Monterey Bay, and continued to develop my professional career in helping communities access safe water.
Well, it's amazing, and I've often said when I'm speaking at conferences or even on this podcast that I think one of the most overlooked challenges facing the world, and we keep hearing about all the existential threats, to humanity, but the one we don't hear as much, I think, in mainstream is this issue of access to safe, clean water. So I want to start by just getting a sense, because it's my sense that when it comes to water, the people around the world fall in one of two buckets. Either you don't really think much about it, except maybe in heavy rains and flooding kind of threats, or you don't know where you're getting your next glass of water, and you have to worry about what it means to actually get that water, if you're going to get it. So can you paint us a picture a little bit more of what is the situation globally for access to clean water?
Yeah, great question. And you hit it spot on. The biggest challenge we're facing globally, both in the West and in the East and the global South and global North, is this challenge of too much water, causing flooding, disasters, issues with infrastructure, or too little water, affecting our agriculture, economic development, and just simple access to a safe drinking water source. So this dichotomy is a problem facing different areas. It's also a problem facing the same exact area throughout the year. We see places like Jakarta that are sinking, or that have sunk almost 4 meters already in disappearing groundwater, while also dealing with catastrophic flooding. We see this in the East and the US that received, tremendous rainfall just last week on the West Coast. And we're having this really interesting challenge of how do we manage all of this water that's coming down, and how do we keep it and be able to use it when that water's not available throughout the year.
So, I mean, we've heard about the less permeable surfaces, and that's a major cause of water not being absorbed by the ground the way it used to be. But that leads to, I mean, You talk about Jakarta. In one city, you have the two extremes. You know, so it's an issue of flooding, and everybody has to worry about personal property and in some cases losing their entire home because of flooding. Um, in other cases, you have individuals who just don't have drinking water or access to the drinking water, and for cities, you have this issue of constant issue of stormwater drainage, and the fact that when that stormwater is not absorbed by the ground, it's flooding our sewer systems,
Yeah.
forcing all of that sewage and rainwater through the system, and it's being dumped. It's not being properly treated, so that you end up with another issue of polluting what little clean water we have. So, I guess that, I mean, this is a problem, whether we realize it or not, for everybody. How bad of a problem is it really?
Yeah, the problem is here at our doorstep today. And like you mentioned, we couldn't have the foresight to really understand this issue. We got really good as a community and as a global community in moving water away as fast as it can to avoid flooding. The challenge with that is that water is actually supposed to go under our feet. It's supposed to recharge the groundwater. That's going to give us the water throughout dry periods. So we're already seeing a lot of challenges in the change of how much rain is coming down in a very short amount of period. Even in natural areas, the soil's hitting its saturation rate right away. All of that's turning into lateral transport and flooding of water. And we're getting this huge problem globally as how is the rain getting back underground? So we're seeing it, yeah, everywhere in the world. And it's not just this physical water scarcity problem, it's economics. Finding a solution that's actually affordable for these communities to implement, to scale, and that can be resilient to a changing future and climate.
So it seems to, I mean, number one, I think we've covered the fact that this is a real threat. And it's a threat whether we realize it or not, to ourselves and to our communities. And we don't want to wait until it's too late to deal with this threat.
Yeah.
So what can people do? Tell us about Gravity Water. What are you doing to tackle this challenge?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we came up with a really simple yet innovative solution back in 2016, actually in a small village in Nepal in Asia, to turn rain into safe drinking water using gravity. As we started scaling up the solution, we realized, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in the US, in Latin America, everybody embraced rainwater harvesting as a solution, yet nobody was actually really doing it efficiently. So that really caught our curiosity, and we really wanted to understand what some of these barriers were to bringing rainwater to scale globally. Why has this ancient practice not been really seen developed beyond a rain barrel? So a lot of the work we've been doing at Gravity Water and our new social enterprise Cloudwell is answering those questions. What we found out is that there's three major barriers to really modernizing rainwater harvesting as a practice that can really help a problem that's huge and that we're facing today. And so those three barriers that we're dealing with are technology, finding a scalable and efficient solution that can be modular, can vary in user case scenarios, that can really help people utilize rainwater safely and efficiently. So we've been working on a really exciting technology that does it. We have this patent pending technology that automates rainwater harvesting. And so what it does is it collects rain off of roofs. It treats it to meet potable water standards, and it actually reintegrates it into a water grid. So people can make sure they're using 100% of the rain that's available to them and using a safe water source. This is a great solution for communities in more developed regions like the US. However, it's also an excellent solution for places that are losing their freshwater resources, that live in rural places in the global south. And so, yeah, we got this really exciting technology. We're also identifying the other two gaps, which have to do with data collection and with really creating an economic vehicle to bring this to people. which, yeah, we're doing a lot of interesting things with right now.
Well, Danny, I'm ashamed to admit this to you, but I have a confession to make. I've had a rain barrel I got last year. It's now been a summer and a half, and I still haven't installed it. But I'm curious to know. I mean, you've covered on a community level how this basically can apply anywhere. You know, developing nations, developed nations, the east, the west, the north, the south. I mean, you cover on all grounds. Where is this actually being deployed, and like the actual use cases? And is it something you see on, like, I could be installing in my home, or is this more commercial buildings? Is it more public buildings? Can you give us a sense of what's happening now and what might be in the future, for instance?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've done a lot of work really helping communities build resilience through working on public infrastructure. So we started our nonprofit organization really focused on schools. And we've been working with hundreds of schools throughout the Asia Pacific region. We have pilots in mega urban cities like Taipei, Taiwan, to very rural villages in northern Malaysia. So we've covered the field with rainwater harvesting for different uses. However, as we started bringing this to, hundreds of thousands of people, getting clean water through rain to them through our organization, we started noticing some barriers and challenges to scaling as a nonprofit organization. So that's why we launched our social enterprise Cloudwell Water Technologies. And now we're positioning ourselves to be working with industry partners, getting into local supply chains, but most importantly, being able to create a solution for utilities to actually commodify rainwater and use it as a tool to integrate into their billing structures. Because if we can solve that, Mike, we can bring this solution to millions of people in a very short period. So that's some of the things we're excited about in the near future, working in the US to get some of these pilots going in public infrastructure and starting to pave the way, similar to solar, to get this on every household.
That's it. I want you to dive deeper for 1 second, and then we're almost out of time, believe it or not. But you just said, working with the utilities, and if we can solve that challenge. What is that challenge specifically?
Well, primarily one of the reasons rainwater is hard to get to people is because it's decentralized. We think that we have a new technology that we're really excited to start launching as a pilot that can actually use smart meters to help utilities and other groups actually integrate the water use into their billing structures. And if we can do this, we can create a sustainable financing tool for these projects. And compared to other water structures, it has a really low recurring cost. So it's a very affordable technology to maintain for decades to centuries. It just needs that initial capital. And so we're creating a pathway to help cities, help utilities do that.
Amazing. So would the utility basically be installing something on buildings? Is that the idea?
Yeah, the idea is that we'll provide the technology to utilities. They will make more, help them increase their profits through making money off a free water source that's literally fallen out of the sky. In that they can subsidize household costs for households, lowering people's water bills, having a win-win. But obviously the most important outcome of this whole initiative is to keep water underground, building our climate resilience for our future.
That really is amazing. You can see how, as you describe, a win-win, it's really like a win-win-win. The utility can win, the individual can win, the community wins. And it's such a simple solution, which is what I love. And it can be easily, correct me if I'm wrong, but it can be easily deployed. Is it the same system that you would deploy, for instance, in a high-rise building in Manhattan versus, a school in Jakarta?
It's a similar technology. The system will be a little different, but the automation technologies we're using will still integrate that rainwater directly into a pipe. So if you're filling a pot of water in the morning to boil some water for coffee, it might start as utility water, it might end as rain, and you wouldn't know the difference. So it's going to be a really cool integration of our resource.
That really is amazing. I mean, my head is kind of just spinning with thoughts of the impact here. So last question here is, what, projecting out, this is what I ask everybody, projecting out 50 years from now, And gravity water solution is on every building anywhere. What is the impact to that property owner? What is it to that community, to the world at large? Give us a sense of the impact that gravity water can have in the world.
Definitely. Well, I can't imagine a future 50 years from now where rainwater harvesting isn't an integrated solution of every single structure globally. I don't see a reality where it can't be. And I think through this reality, two things are going to happen. One, we're going to help protect our water resources. We're going to help reduce flooding. We're going to help manage those intense precipitation events. And two, we're going to help bring clean water to people globally through an equitable practice. So it doesn't matter if you're living in a rural village or in a coastal community, you're going to get access to safe water because this is a solution that can scale and it can reach millions.
That is amazing. And as I said, it is a threat to all of us. And it's reassuring to me to know that there are solutions like gravity water that are tackling these issues that are such a threat to humanity as a whole. So I want to thank you. I really want to thank you for the work you're doing. I mean, you are literally saving lives, but you're also protecting communities, and we can't ask for much more than that. But I also want to thank you for taking the time to join me here on Preview of Tomorrow.
Thank you, Mike.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Preview of Tomorrow. Listeners like you are essential to advancing our efforts to drive resiliency and sustainability for all. I ask that you give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or whichever streaming platform you prefer. Your feedback helps us to grow and share these brief previews of what life in the future can be. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and encourage others to also join us each week in previewing the possibilities of tomorrow.
Preview of Tomorrow is brought to you by Leading Cities, a global nonprofit driving resilience and sustainability for all by unleashing the potential of the world's cities. Join them at leadingcities.org.